forgot to mention this, but yesterday, is this a better spot? Not in the sun. Yesterday, Carol Gant's daughter, Lindsay, gave birth to a little girl. Looks just like the other one. And this kind of neat. But they're in Dallas, and everyone's doing pretty well. And little 19-inch, 7-pound, 2.5 ounce. Know all that, just not the name. The detail stuff. So that's been pretty exciting for them again. We've been continuing our series on finding the sacred and the secular. And what we're doing is this month is we are working on the social media aspects of our part of the life of which a lot of our information comes from. It comes to us in a real rapid pace. But there's I like to think, a lot of good sermons that come out of a lot of that social media that takes place if you look in the right place. Then there's some anti-sermons if you look in the right place as well. So we're going to focus on the good ones and not so much the other ones. I'm using a text this morning. I'm going to read out of 1 Peter. It is in the 2nd chapter in the 9 through 17. So listen to these words. You are a chosen race. You are a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation. You're God's own people, in order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you're God's people. Once you have received absolutely no mercy, but now you receive mercy. Beloved, I urge you as aliens, exiles, to abstain from the desires of the flesh that wage war against the soul. Conduct yourself honorably among the Gentiles, so that they may malign you as evildoers. They may see your honorable deeds and glorify God who comes to judge. For the Lord's sake, accept the authority of every human institution, whether of the empire as supreme, or of governors, as sent by him to punish those who do wrong and praise those who do right. For it is God's will that by doing right you should silence the ignorant of the foolish. As servants of God, live as free people. Yet do not use your freedom as a pretext for evil, but honor everyone. Love the family of believers. Fear God. Honor the emperor. Here ends these words. The first part of this text is always a good little text to keep with you. Put in your back pocket, throw on your mirror and the wallet, put it on your wherever you keep stuff and store things. This is a good thing for you to wake up in the morning and to read, especially on those days when we start getting down upon ourselves. It's one of my favorite scriptures of all times because Peter is writing to a church that's comprised of these Gentile people. You know who Gentiles were. They were the godless people. They had been told their entire lives that they are worthless people, that they have nothing to share. They are the very enemies of God. They're worthless. God cannot stand these people. But now here, all of a sudden, Peter begins to create an opportunity for them to hear a different message. Different message not from the leadership of the church, not from the religion of the past, but a message that tells them how God loves them and sees them and what they are capable of becoming for God. Part of our problem we have as human beings is that we tend to measure ourselves by other people's perspectives. we tend to measure ourselves by the ways of this world. Am I good enough? Am I rich enough? Am I intellectual enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I athletic enough? Am I Christian enough, whatever that means? And if we answer no to any of those questions, then the tendency of ours is to try to prove ourselves worthy to those that we hold in high standing. So if Dad is consistent with his message that I won't amount to much, then it makes a lot of sense that I'm going to try to overachieve and do more things than I ought to be doing just to prove that I am worthy enough so that I can earn his love and his respect and be accepted by my Father. If Mom is constantly telling me that I'm dumb, that I can't get anything right, then I'm going to do everything in my power to prove her wrong and try to build up my intellect as much as I possibly can so that she can see me in a new way and I can have that love that I desire from my mother. If my father is constantly comparing me to my older brother and always saying, why can't you be like him? He's so much like this and so he does these things so well. And if I try to achieve and I can't seem to accomplish the feat to earn his love and his respect, then I start to turn to drink or to drugs or find comfort in sex or to overeat or overwork or overachieve in school. Do whatever it takes to find comfort. And because I feel disappointed. Human tendency is to measure ourselves by everyone else's standards. To the point that we know all about our weaknesses, our deficiencies, our shortcomings, because we're constantly reminded of what we are not. And then there's God. Where does God fit in this picture? A lot of us grow up believing God's thoughts and God's actions are just like those who mostly influence our lives. So God, for me, might be someone who always wants to point out my weaknesses and judges me and criticizes me, who's disappointed in my imperfections, who reviews my sins like he's reading a morning newspaper, making secret notes of things that I've done wrong and keeping in his pocket for me to feel horrible about. He demands that we earn that love and that respect or pay the consequences. But the God of Jesus Christ that Peter is pointing out in this text this morning reminds us that this God sees us for who we are. Goldenly imperfect. Incapable of being all things to all people, but created to do some things extremely well. And doing those things extremely well with others as an act of love that reveals the love and the mercy and the grace of God is what we call church. Many years ago, I asked one of the men in this church who I truly respect, and I asked him what he thought his spiritual gifts might be. I don't have any gifts. When he did. He didn't believe that he could be anything that God would want him to be. And sometimes we feel that way, that in all of our deficiencies and things that we have done, that we have nothing to choose, but nothing to share and nothing to give. And if we think that you have deficiencies in your life, I want you to think again as we watch this video of a man named Nick. Pretty remarkable, isn't it? You know, we all have hurts and pains, things that take place in our lives that cause us to do the things that we may act out in different ways. I've certainly have always been a part of that in my life. But the point is somehow to learn how to close our ears to those who are incapable of loving us the way that we want to be loved or the way that God loves us. And to open up our hearts and our minds and our very souls to the voice of God in our constant prayers, is a way of which we begin to transform our lives from this world to God's world, in the way of which we begin to see ourselves in the same uplifting, confident manner as God sees us. This is our spiritual journey. To reach that point where we begin to see our lives the way that Nick sees his own life. And Peter's reminding that of the church, of people who were once nothing, that now you are a royal priesthood. You know what that makes us? That makes us priests. That makes us ministers. That we're all knitted together using the strength of each of our own spiritual gifts, working together to build each other up so that we can be an expression of God's mercy and grace to the world. This is the very prayer that Jesus prayed in the 17th chapter of John's Gospel. Make it your prayer. Nick wrote a prayer. He did it in a song. And I want this to be your prayer as we listen to this together.